The time allotted for this debate has expired. The debate is adjourned and the resumption of the debate will be made in order of the day for the next sitting, and I call the clerk.
Private members' business notice number 5, standing in the name of the member for Barara, relating to the anniversary of B'nai B'rith.
And I thank the clerk and I give the call to the member for Barara.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to the anniversary of B'nai B'rith in the terms in which it appears in the notice paper. I'd like to, in doing so, Deputy Speaker, welcome the members of B'nai B'rith. We don't usually get such a capacity crowd here in the Federation Chamber, but such is the importance of the 80th anniversary of the B'nai B'rith, and I'd like to acknowledge the member for Macnamara and the member for Wentworth, who are also going to be making contributions in this debate, and particularly to thank past President James Altman, who alerted me to the 80th anniversary of B'nai B'rith. The B'nai B'rith have been here having their triennial convention, both from Australia and New Zealand, and it's wonderful to welcome them to the Federation Chamber this day. 80 years ago in 1944, a group of Jewish German Austrian refugees who fled the horrors of Nazism gathered in Sydney to establish B'nai B'rith in Australia. They built on the traditions of a global organisation that had already existed for a century, animated by the values of fellowship, compassion and communal responsibility. What began as a small social and cultural organisation quickly grew into one of the most enduring and impactful community organisations in this country. From its earliest days, B'nai B'rith created spaces where people could connect, learn and share Jewish culture with the broader Australian community. In 1945, it founded one of the first youth groups in Sydney and followed soon after by one in Melbourne. In 1948, it established its first community home in Darlinghurst, with further centres in Sydney and Melbourne to follow. By the 1960s, B'nai B'rith had expanded across the Tasman with branches in Wellington and Auckland, ensuring its mission reached Jewish communities in New Zealand as well. In 1961, it launched the Hillel Foundation, and B'nai B'rith has established so many offshoots in its time. Hillel offered Jewish residential facilities and counselling for university students, a project so successful that it became an independent organisation after nearly 4 decades. Closer to home for me, and I am so delighted to have a Jewish communal institution in my electorate, B'nai B'rith also founded retirement villages, beginning in Wahroonga in 1964 in my electorate, and today Kadima Gardens continues the proud tradition of providing quality, affordable accommodation for older members of the community. And I want to acknowledge particularly the Kadima Gardens Committee, led by Ada Berger, and in particular it's great to see the great Jack Aggie on here, also from Kadima in my electorate, and others. Perhaps B'nai B'rith's most enduring contributions have been in education, building bridges between communities. In 1981, it organised the first Holocaust exhibition in Australia at the Sydney Town Hall. That exhibition travelled the country and was attended by tens of thousands and ultimately led to Holocaust studies being part of the school syllabus. The work directly inspired the Courage to Care program, and I want to acknowledge Ernie Friedlander and his great work in that, launched in Melbourne and then in Sydney. Courage to Care teaches Australians, especially school students, about the dangers of prejudice and discrimination. It empowers them to become upstanders, not bystanders, inspiring young people to embrace and celebrate the beauty of our Jewish tradition, which teaches us to treat others with loving kindness. In a period where anti-Semitism is escalating, Courage to Care has never been more important. B'nai B'rith have established intercultural celebrations since the early 90s across a range of communities, and their work in intercultural interfaith dialogue is very important. Of course, B'nai B'rith understands and appreciates freedom. Its anti-defamation oration began in 1988 and has provided platforms for people like Pat Dodson, David Roseman and Helen Sussman. Its Gold Medal Award has been given to both Bob Hawke and John Howard. Its Raoul Wallenberg Humanitarian Award was initiated in 1990 with recipients like Tim Costello and Gus Nossel. In 2004, they helped secure parliamentary resolutions against racism and anti-Semitism in this parliament and in various state parliaments. I was proud to deliver the B'nai B'rith Human Rights Oration. I should acknowledge Anna Berger, who was the state president at that time, in 2018, called Human Rights Hijacked. And it's probably one of the most important speeches I've made. In fact, it spurned a book, Nonsense on Stilts, in response to it. So it's always a place a place to go to make important speeches and contributions. B'nai B'rith has done so much, whether it's work for young people, whether it is work that relates to the arts, whether it is work that relates to anti-discrimination and reducing racism in this country, whether it is work that is focused on the advancing of human rights. In celebrating this anniversary today, we celebrate not only a story of a remarkable organisation, but a story of modern Australia, a story of refugees who arrived in this country with little, but who built institutions of strength and who in turn strengthened the nation that welcomed them. May B'nai B'rith continue for another 80 years to lead, to educate, to inspire and to unite Australians of all backgrounds.
And I thank the member for Barara. Is the motion seconded?
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Acting Speaker.
And do you reserve your right to speak?
No, I'm going to speak right now.
You're going to
Acting
speak right
Speaker,
now?
Yes.
Well, then in that case, I give the call to the member for McNamara.
Thank you very much, Acting Speaker. And it is rare that the Federation Chamber is standing room only, but it is a great privilege for us to have members of B'nai B'rith coming here to be a part of this fitting and important tribute to B'nai B'rith's 80 years in this country. I am a product of a community designed and fed in by B'nai B'rith. And I grew up in Melbourne's Jewish community, which was a vibrant community, it still is a vibrant community, one which is full of people who give back to the community, who speak up on behalf of the community in a way that feeds Australian public life and celebrates multiculturalism and diversity, but never forgets the history of the Melbourne Jewish community, one of persecution and one of Holocaust survivors coming and making their place here in this country of ours and finding a safe haven in doing so. And for me, B'nai B'rith is an organisation that helped shape the very vibrant and wonderful community that I'm in and help shape the identity that I'm proud to have as a proud Jewish Australian. Because B'nai B'rith, since coming here in Australia and being established in 1944, has been more than just a community organisation. It has been a home to the largest percentage of Holocaust survivors of any other city outside of Israel, and it has also been a place where the vibrancy and the breadth of activity that B'nai B'rith has been involved in is truly astonishing. From the formation of the first B'nai B'rith youth group in Sydney, followed by one in Melbourne in 1945, the first offices for B'nai B'rith were in Darlinghurst in 1948, the Hillel Foundation in 1961, serving as a residential campus for Jewish university students. In 1964, affordable accommodation for elderly Jewish Australians was set up in Sydney, and then a few years later in Melbourne. In 1977, there was an op shop or an opportunity shop known as the B'nai B'rith Bargain Bazaar, a fantastic and catchy title. In 1981, B'nai B'rith organised, as the member for Barara so eloquently put before, the first ever Holocaust exhibition in Australia held at Sydney Town Hall, which I believe was visited by over 55,000 Australians and 12,000 school students. And then for 80 years, more broadly, B'nai B'rith has been comprising of these wonderful units that have been scattered around the country, giving so much to not only each other, but the broader community as well. The highlight for me also, I have to mention, just like the member for Barara, is Courage to Care, which is a program designed, led and fed by B'nai B'rith, which is all about telling young people in Australia that you must be an upstander against racism and not a bystander in witnessing it. And that lesson, as the member for Barara mentioned before, has never been more important. To have young people in Australia willing to speak up and against racism has never been more important. We can write laws outlawing it, we can write laws giving more protection for security agencies, but what actually is our best and most important fight against racism is the collective commitment to fight it as one united society. And for young people, that is so important across schools, across universities, and that work by Courage to Care is one that I'm extremely proud of. I meet with Mike, our local, Mike Service, our local staff member for Courage to Care, who's a great person and one who believes in this. I spoke to the Armchair Society recently. I've sponsored the B'nai B'rith Jewish Youth Art Competition for many years, and I am so proud to stand in this place to acknowledge alongside the member for Barara and the member for Wentworth the incredible contribution of B'nai B'rith to Australian life. Forgive me, Acting Speaker, I'll mention a few people by name so they're etched into Hansard because they have made an enormous contribution to B'nai B'rith and to our country in James Altman, Elaine Altman, Peter Kapp, Claire Kapp, Irene Kirshner, Leon Nissen, Deirdre Wainart, Alan Wainart, Anna Marks, Denise Monheit, Rosa Shatner, Peter Shatner, And no doubt whenever you create a list like that, you forget many, many people. But to anyone who has contributed to B'nai B'rith, to anyone who has walked inside a unit of B'nai B'rith to engage, to learn, to discuss, to challenge, and to anyone who has been a part of any of B'nai B'rith's programs that have fed not only so much for the Australian Jewish community, but for the Australian community at large. I say thank you. I'm proud to stand here in the House of Representatives off-chamber, the Federation Chamber, to mark 80 years of B'nai B'rith in Australia, and as they say in Yiddish, bis 120 to 120 and more. Congratulations.
And I thank the member for McNamara. The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I give the call to the member for Wentworth.
Deputy Speaker, I'd also like to commend the member for Berowra for bringing forward this important motion, as well as support the words of the member for McNamara. It is an absolute pleasure and honour to be able to stand here today and to celebrate B'nai B'rith and everything that the organisation has brought to this country. As one of the things that is the great privileges, I think, of in my place, particularly in Wentworth, is to see firsthand the huge contribution that Jewish community has made to the strength of not only the community in Wentworth, not only the Jewish community, but the entire country, and B'nai B'rith is just a perfect example of this. The core message when I was doing reading as I was researching this was, our core values place humanity at the centre of everything we do. And it is those core values that I believe in this country are more important than ever. It is remarkable to see the breadth of impact that B'nai B'rith has brought to the country over its 80 years, from retirement villages, from shopping centres, from the social groups and those positive impacts, and really starting Holocaust education. I'm very privileged to have the New South Wales Australian Sydney Jewish Museum in my electorate, but to know that some of that Holocaust awareness and education really was born out of that 1981 Holocaust exhibition, which is now transformed to museums around the country, is absolutely critical and really speaks to the impact that B'nai B'rith has had on this country. But very much like the previous two speakers, I do want to call out Courage to Care, because that is the organisation and the program that I have seen with having that greatest direct impact on students in my electorate of all faiths. And I've had the enormous privilege to be in one of those programs recently at Rose Bay Secondary College, and sat in the room, in the circles with the students, listening to Susan Wahaftig, and when she talked about her own experience as a 2-year-old escaping the horrors of the Holocaust and World War II, and really seeing how that lived history transformed the perspectives of those young people in the room of all faiths and all backgrounds. It was an incredible, it was a beautiful and very uplifting experience. And it is remarkable to see that Courage to Care has had that sort of impact on 400,000 students around Australia. That is absolutely critical. And that, again, that message of an upstander, not a bystander, is one that I think is more important than ever when I contemplate, where we are right now as a country and some of the challenges that we do face as a country, and how do we bring forward and how we deal with some of those. And I think it is very much the values, I think, of that B'nai B'rith has brought to the country, which are the ones that we need to continue to live with. Last week I was speaking to members of the Australian Union of Jewish Students who are in Canberra. I'm going to be speaking to members of them again this week, talking to them about how do we fight anti-Semitism. But this is not just about anti-Semitism, it's about how do we continue to make sure that this country is the most successful and welcoming multicultural, multi-faith country in the world. And it is through programs like those championed by B'nai B'rith that we can really continue to do that. It is that message, I think, of compassion and of bridging divides that B'nai B'rith has championed throughout its work, its championship of human rights, which have really set such an incredible example both to the local community in Wentworth, but really around the country as well. And I think that this has been, as I said, a remarkable contribution to the whole of this, to the broader country. I'd also like to call out a few people in the room. I don't have everyone's names on this list, but particularly calling out Anna Marks and Janine Zimbler as the President and immediate past President for what you've done. Again, I'm not going to do any more names because I will leave out those who should be recognised. But it is really important. It's wonderful that you've come to Canberra to celebrate this, and I'm just really proud to be able to stand here and celebrate B'nai B'rith as well. We all try, I think, have lives beyond just the concerns of our families and, our work. And it is through that gift of giving beyond yourself, beyond your immediate concerns, which makes this country stronger and more successful, and actually just a more compassionate and a happier place to live. And so thank you to everyone from B'nai B'rith for those decades of service to the country. It has made an enormous difference and will continue, I hope, for another 80 years. Thank you.
And I thank the member for Wentworth. There being no further speakers, the debate is adjourned and the resumption of the debate will be made in order of the day for the next sitting. And the Federation Chamber stands suspended until 4 p.m. later today.